Hello, welcome to Artist Managers as Entrepreneurs. I'm hoping a few more people will come in, but before they do, how many artists do we have in the room? We have no artists in the room. We've got one artist in the room. He's going to be well catered for. How many managers do we have in the room, or aspiring managers? Great. Does the artist have a manager? Do you have a manager? You do? Okay. Excellent. This could be a very short and awkward talk. I think so, yeah. So I'm just going to get my panelists to introduce themselves briefly and tell us if you are a manager, or as one of us, we'll find out, used to be a manager. He's got a better way of putting it. Elvis, can you just introduce yourself, tell us how you got into the business and how you got into management as well?
Okay, so yes, my name is Elvis. Started all in 2014 when I created a publishing company, an event company. And yes, I worked with two young rappers called Dorian and Luva. And they had a release show. They had to put songs to put it out, to make a release. But they didn't have a manager. So I was publishing them and I said, okay. And then I have also to do the managing work. And with the time, I teamed up with other artists. I worked with other artists, and I met some other creative partners. And this year, we started a new company that's called FOQUS. And that's there where I do management, marketing, and also audiovisuals.
So you're still publishing as well, yes?
Yes, with my second company.
Okay. Sarah?
Hi everyone, my name is Sarah. My background is in marketing and branding on the record label side, and 3 years ago I decided I want to have more focus in my work and help artists sort of develop more in their storyline and their act. So I started my own management company, Set the Tone, and yeah, that's what I do now.
Okay. Harry?
So I'm no longer an artist manager. I said to you I was an artist manager in recovery, a recovering artist manager.
I love that, actually.
I started a label called Double Denim 10 years ago, put out some really cool artists, and then realised that what I was doing was managing them rather than just putting out their records. So started my own management company, which I took to Red Light Management, which is a huge kind of management company in the US and UK and so on. And then have spent the last 3 years working in music tech for startups. Which is quite similar to managing.
Jennifer?
Yeah, hi. I'm Jennifer, and I work as an artist manager for Made Management. So I'm based in Bergen in Norway, and I have a background in music production. So I kind of just fell into the role as a manager because I think it was like 5 years ago, I got to know a really talented songwriter. And he was kind of clueless about what to do with his talent. So I told him, okay, you should record some demos. And then he did that. And I helped him find like the right studio, right producer. And when he had the demos, he was like, okay, so what's the next step? And I was like, oh, you should go to the radio, you should release the songs, and you should set up a band and do like live concerts. And he was like, oh, I have no idea how to do that, and what's the next step? So I was like, okay, I'm gonna help you. And suddenly I was the manager, I guess.
Okay,
yeah.
Great. INEKE?
Hello, my name is INEKE. I've been working at Play It Again Sam, the record company, for half my life. I've been doing many different jobs in marketing and at the label, and I ran international for a while from out of London and Brussels. Recently, I've mainly been looking after our live events at PIAS and our own produced events, PIAS Nites. And the last year, I've been managing an artist for the first time, and I've recently taken on a second one. Yeah.
So you were thinking, I'm sleeping far too well. I know, I'll become an artist manager.
Yeah, not enough. Yeah, there's not enough hours in the day. Yeah.
So the role of an artist manager now, Sarah, I'll ask you this. What is the task now? What tasks specifically are you doing on behalf of your clients, shall we call them?
Yeah, I call some my kids because they're so young. But yeah, clients. Yeah, I guess just to sort of put their art and their vision and help them translate it to their audiences. I would say that's the main task if I had to phrase it in one sentence. But as everyone is saying, it's so much and so many different areas that you have to tap into. was speaking to someone earlier today who wanted to get into artist management, and I think it's a great start to do something else in the industry first and learn through either a record label or publishing or any other sort of actors in the field. Sort of what the deal is, because your network and your knowledge about the scene is everything, and you want to have that sort of build up when you present yourself as an artist manager, and that's the best way you can support your acts as well. And I would say, yeah, it's a very all-round job for me, at least. It's super personal as well. Could really relate to what the speaker before here was saying about only signing 2 acts in a long period of time, because it's so personal and it's so intensive and it's so 24/7. I could not imagine signing a lot of acts and being helpful to all of them. You can only focus on a few and really give it your all. So, I don't know, does that help?
Yeah, I guess, so in the early days, Elvis, when you take on somebody as a manager, I guess your tasks in the early days might be different from what a manager usually defines himself as. Are you booking your acts?
Yes, so just I give you some insight about the Luxembourg music scene. So Luxembourg has all the infrastructure. So we have venues, good recording studios. We have the expert bureau who's helping us, like Rock Lab here. And what's missing here is like the industry. So like companies like I have, managing companies or publishers, and they are not enough. So I think my first duty is with these partners is to create the industry. And the other duty is, yes, to manage my artists, to get them bookings, get them also deals, so commercialize these with Luxembourgish brands or fashion brands. And yes, and to achieve their goals, that they can live from music.
And have any of your artists so far got to a size where a booking agent has come on board?
It's starting now, because at the beginning when I was with Beast Entertainment, I was like, they didn't understand my role. So they say, okay, you're a publisher, but you do managing and events and everything. And now everything is clear with FOQUS. So we go to showcase festivals, like we went to B-May Festival or Primavera Festival, where Edson, one of our artists, were playing. And now they are more interesting because they see, okay, that's a structure behind the artist who can work out some deals.
Okay. Jennifer, I'll ask you the same question, stopping you from drinking, sorry. Scotsmen should never stop someone from drinking. Yeah, so in the early days, you said you were kind of helping with booking and stuff like that.
Yeah.
How long does that continue for?
Well, I actually started with my own company, and I had the company for, I think it was 3 years, yeah. But I found it a bit difficult because of the income.
Or lack of it.
Yeah, the lack of the
20%
income.
of nothing is nothing. Yeah.
And also it was difficult to kind of climb the mountain to establish the acts. So at the beginning I was like doing everything, like promotion, marketing, also the booking, management, everything.
Security.
Almost. So yeah, but it's really difficult in the beginning, but at the same time you do have to help your artist. So if there's no agent there, you just have to do it just to kickstart.
Can you not? Yeah. I know that some managers will nominate someone in the band to be the pseudo agent, usually the drummer, actually. Yeah, you're the agent now. You try and get the bookings. Have you done anything like that? Try and empower somebody in the band to help?
Nah.
No. Okay.
I wouldn't recommend it as a manager.
Okay.
Because like if the drummer, he's gonna have like a different opinion and stuff, and he doesn't maybe see like the business side, because he's a drummer. He's supposed to be like the creative person, so he's just.
No, he's a drummer.
Yeah, he's like the creative person who's chasing his dream, and I'm trying to do the business side as well. So, yeah.
Okay, next question I'm gonna put to Harry and to INEKE. What makes a good manager? How do you define a good manager from a bad manager?
I've once heard a really good expression that I really liked by one of my favorite managers I've worked with. And I would stand probably by that forever. And it is that a good manager should never be afraid to lose his job, her job.
Okay.
And I think it's very important that you're not the mate, you're not a friend.
Yeah.
Of course, you got to get on. Of course, it's a super personal business, you know? And we're all human, and you need to have people around you that you connect with on every level, I guess. But you should not be afraid to say, that's a really, really bad idea. I don't think we should do that. And I think a lot of young people, by default, because there's nobody else around, still use mates and friends or people who just say yes to everything they believe in. And there is a very fine line, because at the same time, you also don't want to be the one who's not having the artist's back. And if you're not going to support the crazy ideas or the wild ideas, that could be very disheartening for a young, a new artist saying, fuck, even my manager thinks it's crap, And it's a fine line, especially with mental health awareness,
Sure.
You also need to be the person they go to when everybody else, is not supporting. But that's that line. That's what you need to find out. And I think it's a bad idea if you're saying things, just agreeing to things when, it's a bad idea. You should not have gone for that. There's a reason why we don't go there. So yeah, don't be afraid to lose your job is, I think, a good one.
Sarah's going to jump in.
Yeah, I was just thinking of a different example. I think for me, being a good artist manager is also listening to your artists and really like understanding their art and their vision for the project. For me, at least, that's like the main important thing. And I was just thinking about, yes, telling them when something's a bad idea, but also the artist telling you when something's a bad idea. I had a funny example of this. One of my producers, he was releasing a track this year in March on a Friday. And the Thursday night, he's calling me and he says, yeah, there's a new track coming out tomorrow by Zed and Katy Perry. And Zed is this producer DJ from the US, and it's like his #1 idol, and like he's a big fan. He wants to find some way in his like life or world. So he's like, yeah, I'm actually gonna make a bootleg or a remix, and I'm gonna put it out tomorrow. I'm like, but no, you have your own release tomorrow. Like, no, this is a bad idea. We have so many plans and things to do. I was like, no. He's like, no, but I have a feeling. I really have to do it. So he worked all night and he put it out on the same day as the original record came out, and he was posting it on socials. And within an hour, he gets a tweet from Zed saying like, oh, this is sick. Can we please make this official? And so 3 months later, we're actually releasing this bootleg as an official remix, and now we've got a good relationship with this artist, and we met him last week in London, and it was like his biggest dream. So I had to admit that I was wrong, and my advice was bad. And so I think being able to work on that level where if your artist really has a strong passion or a strong feeling about something, then you also, as a manager, need to support that person as well if they have a vision for something.
That's very honest of you not taking the credit for it. Harry.
Yeah, I was
but
going to say
this is what
something
it's about. I mean, yeah.
similar. I think you have to be unafraid to have difficult conversations. As a manager, you have to be open to being completely honest. If you think that the label has a bad idea, you have to be unafraid to tell the label that you think that that's a bad idea or that your artist doesn't want to do it. But at the same time, you have to be the person to say to your artist, actually, what you're telling me is a bad idea. It's not going to work.
So this is about managing expectations as well, I take it.
Yeah, and just having like honest debates, and you can both win in a debate. Like in any sort of type of relationship, you can be right and wrong. And I think there's so many egos already enough in the music industry. Let's just be honest. And
I think it's really easy as a manager to kind of feel almost like you work for the label or the publisher or the agent. And I think you kind of constantly have to remind yourself that the person who you're working for, who you're representing, is the artist, and everything has to come back to them.
And protecting their independence as well for me. But I'm coming more from an electronic scene where independence and one-off deals and single deals and shorter deals are more common and the splits are more fair. I know in different genres it's a bit different, but yeah.
I'm just going to get on now to like the creativity beyond music. So you guys, as managers, Harry, I'll include you in this as well, but your eyes have constantly got to be open for opportunities, yeah? And I dare say you're getting lots of entrepreneurs coming to you with crazy ideas. So Elvis, I mean, how do you think outside the box? How do you create new revenue streams so your artist isn't just depending on live or streaming or whatever?
I think collaborations with brands maybe, but the main thing is it has to make sense with the identity of the artist. Like one example, there was a beer company who wanted to work with Edson, and Edson is a pop R&B singer, and they wanted to do a party-style commercial about with him and everything, and it was a good deal, good money deal, but it didn't match to Edson's brand, because Edson is more about vegan, healthy stuff, so we didn't accept it. And there are some good other income streams, but I think what's mainly, more importantly, is that it has to fit with the brand of the artist. So, yes, that's what I think. Yeah.
Sarah, I mean, how many kind of approaches are you getting from people saying, oh, your artist is perfect for this, or can you find an artist that's perfect for this?
Right, yeah. For me, I work a lot with producers, so I get a lot of requests from either vocalists, top liners, or other producers who want to work with my producers. And it's a fine line, I think. The benefit of working with producers is that they can produce for other people without being credited, and then we can still like work on all sorts of like genres and input. But very similar to what he's saying, it has to fit like my artist brand first to really have it be a collab, whether it's with a brand, whether it's with a label as well. I think there's so many labels out there that are not focused on building your artist brands, but maybe building their own brand, especially when you look in the electronic scene. Or they want to like really push my artist in a certain way, and they're coming up with a plan that just doesn't match like the profile of the artist at all. And then yeah, I also always say no, because I'd rather do it myself and authentic and organic, which might be slower because there's no money offer coming in, or there's no big label attached. So. But yeah, you're in it for the long run. You're in it for the sustainable and authentic way to connect with your fans, and the right partners are key in this. So, yeah, I would always say better do it alone in your like authentic sort of atmosphere that works for you, than teaming up with the wrong brands for the wrong reasons. Exactly as what Elvis was saying.
And I'm a little bit ignorant of this, so this is a genuine ignorant question. I'll ask it to Jennifer. How soon are, not necessarily big brands, but how soon are brands coming in to approach artists? I'm talking about artists who are just breaking, or artists who, you know, aren't #1 hits or anything like that. I mean, is it happening more and more?
Well, it depends on the brand, and also it depends on the project. I'm working with artists that's at different levels in their career. So one of the artists has over 100 million streams, but also I'm working with like a new artist who hasn't released any songs yet. Okay. But we already had like a sync deal. So one of her songs is synced to a TV show.
How did that come about?
Actually, it was like a publisher to the producer she wrote the song with. But the TV show, they didn't really care about like the name of the artist or anything. It was all about the song. So I think it's like from project to project.
So has the artist got a publisher yet?
Not my artist.
So that genuinely came through the producer?
Yeah.
Wow, that's a great story.
But they came across the song and they were like, oh, I think this is perfect for as the theme song.
Okay. Same question, really.
Yeah, I work with a young female black MC, and since it's been going quite fast for her in Belgium, and it's incredible how many things you get in your mailbox. But also, when I mention black, it's also because I say that a lot of those kind of requests as well, people immediately expect you as well to have a voice about every issue and topic relating to that. They want you to feature in all sorts of videos and charities and against, you know, white privilege, and there's a whole lot of political side that comes to it. So it's you need to see what's good and what's not good. But then sometimes really crazy things fall out of the air. She was asked half a year ago, and even then in Belgium it's still slow days. That was before the summer. We got an email from Ljubljana, and she was asked to co-write and perform the official Eurovolley 2019 theme of Anthem.
Okay.
And we only found out. We went to Venice, we went to Ljubljana, we went to Zagreb. She played at the opening ceremony, she played at the finals, at the closing ceremony in Stade de Bercy in Paris. And I only found out that night in Paris how they actually got to her. And it was some kids of one of the main guys in Belgium who love hip-hop. And
okay.
they wrote her name on a piece of paper They've been following her for a bit while. But yeah, it's funny how... And she co-wrote that piece, so that was interesting, and she made it, she kept it her. She stayed true to, you know, who she was in the video, in the lyrics, in the performance. So that was nice to do, and that was, of course, a big thing. But sometimes it's from all...
Harry, you're on the other side now. So you're the guy
It's interesting because I have respect for a lot of young people who manage. When I see all young managers, I think it's amazing. I cannot imagine that I did that 20 years ago. Because to me, it comes absolutely normal right now. I've worked with so many artists and so many artist campaigns from the beginning that all the questions she has for me now, I have no hard time answering them. Everything is different, but I can only do this job, I think, because I've done it for a while.
Because the experience you've had, yeah.
And ultimately, an artist today, and or in every country, I think, they all run at the beginning into the same issues. And so you know, for me, it's easy for me to take on. I hate the admin side of it, and I don't have time for that. But everything that has to do with the strategic and the helping and where are we going and the vision, and it comes super natural to me because I've been working at a label for 20 years.
Okay.
I find that, yeah, there's a reason I'm only doing it now.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So Harry, I was going to ask you from the entrepreneurship side of things, you are coming across, or you're involved in companies and you're coming across companies that you're thinking, right, how do we connect these with the right people in the business?
I think, so I've been working with startups for 3 years, and I think the kind of companies I work with, you have somebody who's willing to fund an idea, usually like silly money, you know, because it all comes from venture capital and stuff like that. But I think very rarely do any of these companies, even though they want to use music, actually know their route into using music. Because for one, licensing music is really difficult because you have to license both from the label and the publisher and anything else. And two, it's really difficult to actually just find artists, talk to them, bring them into the world of whatever it is that person's making. So I think lots of the companies that I've spoken to or have worked for their route in tends to be through management, because I think if they go to labels or publishers, instantly there's lots of money attached. But I think if I was going back and being a manager now, I would be really kind of open to opportunity and open to maybe collaborating with technology companies.
So you're like an artist manager for the startups, pointing them in the right direction.
It's very similar. Like if you start a company because you have an idea, it's not too far away from an artist who starts making music and has some ideas. Like these people do way more than they should do, and so do artists in the very beginning. Like you're doing the business, you're coming up with strategy, you're thinking about what your brand is. Like all of this stuff, both an artist and a startup founder are doing.
So are they looking at the demographics of an artist's fan and then thinking, right, here are the top 3 artists that we'd like?
Yeah.
Harry, go do it.
It can be that, or it can be more broad. It can be like we need some artists, we need some music, we need to test this thing that we're building, if you know, an app or something like that. Okay,
let's get down to building the right team, which I don't know if you agree, but I think it's probably the most important bit about what you guys do. Sarah, I mean, it must be when you get different acts, you're obviously going to have completely different teams involved. Where do you start? I mean, do you go to an agent that's maybe got similar acts, or do you go to an agent who's maybe not got one of those acts? How do you go about it?
Well, I'm very much, as I said before, I'm a very big believer in being independent. So we've got like, for each team, we've got like, or for each artist, I'm trying to build their own team. So we've got our own like designer, our own like content team, our own like people to go into the studio with and to work with, and to really also make that like an authentic sort of chemistry that's sustainable. When it comes to, for example, record labels or publishers, I think at the beginning you really, especially when you work with talents and like mid-tier artists, you'd have to really, of course, you have to pitch your artist, but in the end of the day, what you want is that people are genuinely interested in your artist. So you don't want to hit up 10 bookers or like 10 labels. You want them to, of course, like email you or reach out to you in a way that it's authentic. And hence, I'm also saying that if you can't find the right partner for your artist from the beginning, there's so much you can do yourself. And I'm quite a big fan of that because you're sort of in control of your own destiny, and doing a self-release or finding like a good distro partner is so useful these days, and it can get you the same amount of streams or even more authentic streams and fan bases than if you sign to a label who's not genuinely interested and genuinely committed, and they just like throw it at the wall and they'll see what sticks. And once you start making revenue, then they're actually gonna, you know, get involved. So it's again like I would say with the inner team, so like our own people, and even with like our fixed partners, we really look for people who are genuinely bouncing off our ideas, and it's like a sustainable relationship instead of just, okay, here you have a big advance and then we're just gonna put out 5 singles and we'll see what happens. Because even when you get a really big advance, it does not mean that they're gonna work for your artist, like, trust me. So yeah, I think that's very important. Sounds like they're moving my
expenses back there. INEKE, you want to jump in there?
Can I say something about it? Yeah, because I get asked a lot, like, what's the right time? When do you get a manager? When do you get a label? When do you get a lawyer? When do you get a publisher? And I am very much believing, but that's just my idea, that you don't go looking for these people. I think if you have to go looking for these people, then that's not your time, you know? And I remember there was once an ad in the NME back in the day when it was still print, and it said something, a band from Liverpool, make music, genre, whatever, Manix, looking for label, manager, publisher, agent. And I thought, well, maybe not. You know, if nobody in all the time that you've been doing something has come to you, you have to go back and work on what you're doing, and then rehearse again and think about maybe is it right, and play more and more and more. So yeah, I really don't want to go to anybody.
And those kids called the Beatles, they went nowhere.
Yeah, exactly.
So from a Luxembourg point of view, Elvis, if you're looking to build the right team, at the moment, are you having to look outside the borders to get that team?
Yes, the most things we can do ourselves. So in my team I have Emmerwin is doing he's our art director, and Navid is doing social media marketing, and Damiano is more in strategies. So what we're looking out is for agent, because okay, I can do the own bookings in Luxembourg, but if I want to go to Belgium or Germany or France, I have to work with an agent. So what we do is have a lot of live shows so they can see the talent of our artists.
Okay, and I guess this is a question for both you and Jennifer, because you're from smaller markets, shall we say. So is there any kind of mentoring system that you guys have got? Is there anybody you can turn to as you know, a young manager and say, I've come across this situation, what should I do? What would you have done in the same situation? Have you got any kind of support network like that?
Yes, like Musical Leaks is helping us a lot. It's an export bureau. So they're sending us to showcase festivals, and we meet some pros, some bookers, some agents, and we're networking with them and talk to them, talk about our problems and looking for answers. And that's why we get, it's learning by doing.
Yeah, I agree. It's learning by doing, but at the same time, I often go to Music Norway for like mentoring, and they also focus on like the Norwegian export of music. And also, I just talk to other people who does management. There's a lot of talented people at my office who's been in the business for years.
Okay.
So I'm not saying that they have the answers to all the questions, but I could learn about their mistakes as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sarah, did you have anything when you first started?
Yeah, I always have like a mentor, so it just changed actually, and I'm also part of She Said So, which is a female like led organization for women in the music industry, and we also offer like mentor programs for people who just got out of school and want to get into the industry. So yeah, I think as an artist and as a professional, not just for artist managers, for like anyone, it's just so useful to have a mentor and meet up like once a month for 2 months and, you know, just like bounce ideas off each other, especially for me, like having my own company and only one person who's working with me. Yeah, it's super useful, and I would recommend anyone. And also, don't be afraid to ask for a mentor, because people really don't mind. People don't mind going to dinner once a month and helping you out and, you know, just advising you. So yeah,
as long as
it's
you
for everyone, I think, no matter how old you are. Sorry?
As long as you pay for dinner.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, that's one thing that I've experienced is like, don't be afraid to email someone and ask for a
No,
coffee, because you'd
exactly.
be surprised at how many people will say yes and want to help. And I think then, that's something that I think is important to take forward, that once you reach that stage where other people are emailing you, is to be generous with your time and the things that you know.
Having been at a big management company, is there ever those kind of discussions where you're like, okay, this band is reaching a certain velocity now, we need to change the team. We can't use that agent anymore because we need this agency that has all these different services. Is that a kind of
That's
conversation?
a bit harsh.
Yeah, but it's reality, isn't it?
I think what I would say about a team is that you should always make sure that the people who are working as part of that team really want to be on that team, that they're really enthusiastic about the band. They're not just enthusiastic about the hype, or because the band is on some radio playlist or is doing really well, that they actually care about the music and they care about where you want to go as a career, not just a release or a single or something.
Yeah, and I think your team can grow along with you. And also, I think young people can be very inspiring, and I can learn a lot from young people who are like on YouTube or on social media, or like, yeah, I don't think age is always per se a better thing. You can also get stuck in your ways. You can, get like in one sort of line, or I think like young people can be very more creative and very more on point, especially in this day and age when everything's online and everything's digital and tech. And I think any team can grow along with the act, and it's all about the passion and the commitment. So, and again, then you can get advice from external people or mentors, or. But I mean, if it's international or global, it makes sense to get like licensed partners or people in the US to help
That's kind
for
of
that.
where
Like,
it's going. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, yeah, if it's like territory focused, or if it's a very specific market, like anywhere in Asia or the US, of course you need different teams for that. But I think a core team can grow along with the artist or with the act or the band.
One thing I was going to ask you earlier that I forgot: how early in your relationship with an act do you sign a contract? This is for all the aspiring music managers.
Yeah, I always do like a test period of like 3 to 6 months. Yeah.
But make sure you have that contract.
Yeah, please
Because
make sure you have
because
that
as an artist manager, you work super, super hard, sometimes for like 2 years with very little in
Investing.
return. And if that artist decides they want to leave you, or something good happens, they just another artist manager comes along, like you want to make sure that you've protected that time that you put into the act, and that you get fairly compensated for that.
Sure, as soon as there's a hit, the vultures start circling, yeah?
Well, I think it's a really weird situation because you do it indeed after a certain testing time that you go through. But let's assume you're still both in a very happy, feeling good moment. And what you're doing is that you have to talk about something for when it doesn't feel like that. And that's a really weird place to talk about. But you actually have to go through points in the contract that are talking about something you're totally not experiencing at that moment. And that creates often that's for every artist very hard, because you can't imagine that it would ever be like that, but you have to do it because, yeah.
And should
It's
that
very unnatural in a way.
should that contract set out exactly what you should be doing as a manager? No?
I don't think you can get everything in there what you're doing, because I can't even
No, but
start to
the
list
income,
what
the
you're
income.
doing. So
You want to define the income?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
just know that I've spoken to very experienced artist managers in the past who are like, oh, so-and-so from the band phoned me at 2 o'clock this morning because his fucking shower wasn't working. So, there's that level of expectation, but I think if you've been an artist manager for so long and the band just expects you to do everything for them, it's not really...
I think you need to be clear how you work and who you are from the beginning. I would never, ever want to work with an artist who doesn't know where the fucking toilets are, who doesn't want to ask for it. And I literally was at Raper Band Festival, and I was with the manager, we were having coffee, and the band texted him, asking him where the toilets in the venue were. I'm not joking. And I was like, I can't believe that. You should not answer, because, the moment you stop answering these kind of things, you're not there that they all open their mouth, So I will never be that kind of person. But you have to do that from the beginning. I'm not a PA. I'm not going to be your PA. If you need a PA, you should get somebody. You should get somebody to do that. Because otherwise, it's unlimited, isn't it? It's what you say at 2 o'clock in the morning, and it's unhealthy for both ways.
So a lot of the artist managers as entrepreneurs do you rely on your artists a lot for that? Are you relying on your artists for a lot for the crazy ideas that you think, oh, hang on a minute, we could monetize this. There is, or this is a great strategy for you. Or how much are you driving those strategies yourself?
I think it's a combination a little bit. Sometimes one idea could lead to like, oh, hold on, but what if you take it that, then there? But I would never look for the art in the first place. When you build the catalog and when you build the beginning of an artist, I wouldn't focus immediately on how is this going to bring in money, because I think that's not the right way to think about it. How are you doing what you want to do, and how can you get better at all that and feel great about it, and take it to more people, and ideally, you know, we look at if there's another support system in place that can make you pay your rent at the moment. I don't want the artist to take decisions out of financial reasons when it comes to music, and neither do I want to lean on that to pay my rent. But I know that's a luxury position to talk of, you know, but still, you know, in an ideal way, that's not what they're thinking of. How does this make money? They should be thinking, how does this sound? Is this good? Is this good enough? Or do I go back in the studio? And it shouldn't be like, how is this going to be monetized? I think, you know, that shouldn't be the first question.
Yeah, I think for me, an artist manager as an entrepreneur means, because it's 2019, and it's so different of a game than it was 30, 40 years ago. I think for me, the title of the panel means using like just the online world, the abilities that you have with your team to take your own control, to find the right partners, to make the right connections, to work with like cool tech companies or exciting startups, because of internet we can reach out to everyone and like anyone, and we can try to connect more on the global level easier. Where 30, 40 years ago you had only the major players, you only had like sort of traditional gatekeepers, if you will, television, radio, magazines. You know, if they weren't writing about you, you weren't reaching anyone. Now you can create your own Instagram account. And you can manage your own destiny a little bit more. And for me, the role of an artist manager is together with the artist to think, okay, how are we going to grow our brand, like either with the right partners or on our own, and what can we do? And the level of success for me is for the artist and the artist manager to be able to live off the art. And that's not like, that doesn't per se mean like a #1 worldwide hit, because that's small, but that's what everyone's aiming for. But just to live off your art, do what you love most, have passion and have fun, and yeah, that's more possible, I think, than ever.
Are there tools, like simple tools you can use to help with that?
Data, that's another thing. We haven't even touched upon this, because
where do you get your data from?
Well, there's so many platforms out there. First of all, like through your social media channels and your DSPs, you can look at your own data. Artists can actually analyze their own data. They can see, oh, actually, I've got 5,000 listeners in Oslo. Let's just go to Norway. Oh, my manager knows Jennifer. Oh, let's just ask her for help, and let's like set up our own show. That's something so simple, and that's information that you have through your DSPs and your socials. And then there's a million, and you probably know this better, but there's a million cool platforms out there like Soundcharts or Chartmetric, and so much information that you now have yourself, that you used to be dependent on the major or someone to tell you. You are now having that control yourself, and use that and plan around that and see where your super fans are. Like, don't target the world. Because if my mom hears your song on a radio, she might like it, but she's not going to follow you on Spotify, she's not going to buy your merch, and she's definitely not going to come to your concert. So find that super fan that's already linked in and tuned into your channels, and interact with them more and build upon that relationship.
Harry, you know more about these things, so.
I think one of the biggest lessons that I learned from working at startups and software development is lots of the startups I work for use this thing called lean, which is, imagine it's a circle, and you're making some software. At the top you have build, and then you have measure, learn, and then you take those learnings and you put them back in and you build again. So like if you're making a version 1.0, then you put your 1.0 out, you measure, which is your data, you learn, you look at it really analytically, you figure out where you made mistakes, where you can make improvements, and then you build again, and you make another version. And I feel like you could take that and apply it to being to building an artist's career. Like you put a single out, that's your like 1.0, measure it. You look at your like sound charts and where things are popping off and what's worked. Was it press? Was it radio? And you learn and like acknowledge your mistakes, acknowledge what could be better, and then the next time you take those learnings and you put it back in. And if you do it right, then you're actually improving your output all the time.
Yeah, I think just sitting down with your artist, I do with my acts like once every 4 months. We just sit down, we rent a space, and all day we brainstorm, we look back, we see what happened, where we make new goals, we set new plans, and we do it every 4 months. And it sounds very like time intensive, but those are the most useful moments. Also just to interact a full day together and just really think about, you know, where are we, where did we come from, where are we going, and just look at all the data. And I think it's easy in artist management to get sort of caught up in all the day-to-day because there's so much to do. Yeah. So it's hard to stand still and evaluate, but I think that's super on point.
Yeah, and I think also not being afraid to have those conversations, going back to what I said earlier, like you have to be unafraid to say, we did this didn't really work.
Elvis, if you're taking some of your artists to showcase events elsewhere, are you able to tap into data to see what kind of peak that got, if it's got any success from it, or is it too early days afterwards?
It's for some artists it's not too early, for others yes, and yes, we are also, like Sarah said, we're looking into Spotify for artists. We're looking at the evolution of Instagram when we have more followers after a show. So we noticed with the child, it's an example. We did a support show for Mahmoud, an Italian artist, and after the show, the increasing was 300 followers more on Instagram. So we knew, okay, this Italian market, it's maybe a target for him, target market.
Sorry, Sarah.
Yeah, I was just thinking of an example. I was having a brainstorm with one of my artists, and we did a release on the label, and it was one of his, he really has a big connection to the label himself as a producer, so he was really keen to release there. But it didn't do well when we look at streams or selling numbers of the music. But he gained a lot of followers on his socials. And then we had kind of a tough debate about so should we continue working with them because on a social level it makes sense, and is that then a sustainable choice to build up on, or do you just want to see the music? And for him, being a young person always on socials, he was like, yeah, but I've never got so many comments on a release on YouTube, blah blah blah. And then my point as a manager, of course, yeah, okay, but it's not translating into plays, it's not translating into money, so I think it's not a good decision. And to have those conversations, that you really have to dive deep into the data, because sometimes it can be misleading if you think, okay, now I've got 500 extra Instagram followers and so many comments, whatever. But if it's not translating on the musical project, which is for me the core of the project, then so socials can also be misleading, I think, sometimes when you look at data.
I had a breakfast meeting with someone recently from one of the big American agencies, and they have a whole department now that's analysing data, but then saying and this wasn't just for music artists, it was for actors and stuff instead, but they were saying, oh, you score really highly here, so we're going to try and find you a partner in the gaming world. So is that, Harry, is that being used by anybody else, that kind of data mining to look for those kind of opportunities for specific artists?
I'm not sure. I think, yeah, it must be. But I guess, to your point about gaming, I think there's a lot you can learn from doing collaborations and then looking at the data afterwards. I think it's easier to do that than it is to look before, because you only know half of the story. I think I read about the collaboration that Marshmello did with Fortnite. He played a gig inside of Fortnite, and I think, I can't remember how many people watched it, but it was
over a million.
Over a million. And the next day, I think his YouTube subscribers were up something like 200%, and his Spotify streams were up 1,000%. Just had a real measurable impact. And then I think as their team, you can look at that and be like, this was something that was very successful, and we can repeat that success.
Yeah, you're talking about agencies like CAA and William Morris. They all got the actors, yeah. But it probably comes down to them having really good data, analyzing people. Yeah. Because that's what everybody says. We get at PIAS, we get something like 20,000 pages a day with data. But if you just don't do anything with them, then they're just badly paid, music sales. And we have artists who've got millions and millions and millions of streams. But then when you look at it, they're all coming from 100 playlists about, Sunday mood, whatever. And not from an artist page, not from an album page. And when the artist then goes out and play, there are 4 people. And then you can have your streams can be so much lower. Yeah. But with a much stronger engaging fan base. And we keep saying that to people. And you have these data, analyze them, but also share them in the team. I find it unbelievable that some agents still don't want to share info, managers not sharing, labels not sharing information. It makes touring a lot more productive. It makes anything you do a lot more, constructive.
It's just going to be the best for the artist anyway. And yeah, it's just going to be the best for the artist. And we are, as a team, we are aiming for the same goal. So we just need to be open and talk about this statistics. Yeah.
I agree, but I kind of see that there's still a bit of them and us situation in the music industry with recorded and live. And it kind of, you just want to bang their heads together sometimes. If they all work for the better, for the good of the artist, they're going to earn more money as well. I wanted to talk a little about revenue streams as well. So I think from previous sessions today and from the keynote earlier, live is the #1 kind of revenue stream at the moment, yes? Then where do we go? Is it streaming? And then, if it is streaming, how soon is that money actually trickling down to the artist? So from my point of view, because I'm the live side of things, live's the money's there. You play the gig, you get the money. Streaming, how long is it taking for the money to land?
For me, it was a situation that I don't want to do again. I know how it is when you're signed to a label. So for me, it was a bit tricky. We went with just an aggregator. We went with CD Baby. But I must say, I was amazed by the regular payments. Super quick. Every month there's money coming in. Okay. And it was a lot more than I thought. So
great.
That was for me just positive to know. It was more the fact that if something goes wrong, I had no idea what to do. I would know exactly what to do at the label. I would know who to call. And here we had a few issues, and I was like, wow, this is freaky. That I now have to find somebody, Portland, Seattle, or whatever. And that was a bit, being a small shrimp. So I would hope to have a different situation next time. But the payments was quite surprising. And I think that's a lot quicker than any traditional record company will pay you out.
Right, cool. Yeah. Harry, when you were a young manager, or if there's young managers around now, are there any particular revenue streams that aren't obvious that you would flag up to them?
I think one of the things that took me a while to really get my head around when I was a manager was the publishing side, and just like really making sure that all of those registrations are done, and that you're just super like organized and tidy on all that stuff. Because it can be the revenue stream that is maybe feels like the least urgent because it takes the longest to come in, sort of payments every 6 months, which can be like 2 years in arrears. But it's the one that if you don't get it right, then it's really, really difficult to then go back and get that money.
And I know that the likes of the PRS and PPL in the UK as well, they are chasing artists to try and give them money because these people haven't registered their details. So, sorry, Sarah.
Yeah, I was just thinking on terms of like royalties, I think it's, again, in electronic scene, there's some really positive changes with monthly payouts for a lot of more independent labels. There's a lot of electronic YouTube labels out there who also share the revenue stream through YouTube with the artists, which in labels like Trap Nation or No Copyright Sounds can be very beneficial. And I think thing that I noticed with a lot of other artists, everyone's blind staring on Spotify, and Spotify is not the best DSP when it comes to the turnaround of revenue. Reaching out and focusing more on other platforms like Apple or Amazon can be very beneficial as well. And I think, it's just everyone's chasing like the golden egg at Spotify at the moment, which I think will change eventually anyway, as everything always comes and goes in waves. But just focusing on those other platforms that have a better turnaround per stream is something small but very powerful.
Elvis, are there people administering those kind of rights in Luxembourg? Is there a local PRS? Is there a local PPL for the mechanicals?
Yes, SACEM it's the French white collector.
Okay.
And they have an office here in Luxembourg.
Right, okay. And
Is that the only option?
Here in Luxembourg, yeah.
So you couldn't, if you wanted to go with, I don't know, GEMA in Germany or something, can you do that if you wanted to, or?
In Germany, you mean?
No, in here, in Luxembourg. Do you have to go with SACEM?
No, you can also go, but it makes more sense to go with SACEM, I think, if you're here in Luxembourg. Yeah.
What about other things that, as an artist grows, like image rights and things like that? Do you get involved in all that side of things, or are you
Image rights, or?
Yes.
For my acts, it's not always as relevant still. I've worked with bigger acts where it was way more relevant. I think in general, copyrights is a very interesting topic as well. Like, when do you give your music, or when do you allow influencers to use your music for free, and when don't you? And again, I think there's a bit of a division in the music industry between let's say, somewhat more experienced people and younger people taking risks on that area. Where I'm, especially when you're building your act, I'm a big believer of just getting your music out there and going for organic growth. Because I've seen, like, I've done partnerships in the gaming industry, or like across YouTube with copyright-free music, and we can always see that it translates through Shazams into all of the DSPs, and eventually it goes back to the artist. But there's still so many, especially major labels, trying to hold back on that and pushing back and don't allowing for that, which I think for beginning artists is a big waste of opportunity.
Is merchandise a big thing in the EDM sector?
Sorry, what did you say?
Merchandise.
Yes.
It is.
It all looks the same, but yes. Except for Bitbird. Shout out Nikita. They always have sick merchandise with Sun Holo and Bitbird. But yeah, no, it's a big thing, yeah.
Okay. And so an anecdotal thing, this is just by the by, an anecdotal thing I've heard recently about record labels, and this came from a manager, is that the record labels seem to be having this push for Spotify kind of friendly hits. Is that anything that any of you guys have come across? They seem to be kind of maybe trying to push people away from the live side of things more towards Spotify.
Yeah, I saw your note about that. And it doesn't surprise me, or I understood what you meant by that. Now, I work for Play the Again Sam, and I can't imagine any other artists who would be gently pushed or mildly pushed into in our direction, that they, you know, with that kind of reasoning behind, because it sits well on playlist. If anything, I think we would still say that that is the last thing they should do, and that there is nothing as important as your authentic voice. And if you start screwing with that, I think that's signing you that, you know. And we still work with artists to do that, big and small. We released Jack White's album recently, and his manager said it as well, that the first data came in after the new record came out, and for the Raconteurs, the Raconteurs album, and everybody sat around the table, and the data came in from the US radio, from all the first day, and they were really bad. And everybody loved the record, everybody loved the campaign, and he just put them in the middle of the table. It's like, fuck it, you know, that's data, and now let's go back to why we were doing this and why we did this, and this is insane. We're not going to let that define, you know, we're not because we're on that playlist or we're not on that stream there. Let's go back. Let's not only look at that. And the record, you know, the whole campaign is a success. So it's. I don't think you should ever make a record. And I'm talking from the label now, because it's going to go on that playlist. I think that's not going to work.
Cool.
Yeah.
Just before I open the questions for the floor, Elvis. So obviously there's a bit of a lack of an industry in Luxembourg at the moment. Getting into being an artist manager, it's probably not something you can go full time straight away, I'm guessing, because you need to pay the bills. But how would you encourage somebody else to get into that, or to get into another part of the industry, or to help build the industry here? What would your words of encouragement be to some people sitting out here?
At first, I would say just be honest with yourself. If you really want to do it, just do it. Like I did, like others did it. And I'm here, we are here, there are others, managers who's doing that. Don't be afraid of doing it. If you're young, you're 20 years old, just do it. You have time. Yeah, even if you don't manage to achieve your goal, you can do something else after all. But I think if you really want to do it, just do it.
And ask Elvis as a mentor.
Yes.
I'm 50, I'm screwed.
Gordon as a mentor.
Do we have any questions from any aspiring managers or any artist questions? Don't all rush at once. No? If you're a bit shy, everybody will be around a little bit later on, so you can probably buy them a beer and they'll answer any questions. It works for me. So I guess we'll finish up then by just, I'm going to ask you all for one piece of advice that you could give to either an artist or a manager. Well, if I'm an artist, how should I choose my manager? There's a good one for a start.
The manager should choose you.
Really? Okay. So yeah, just one piece of advice. I'll start with INEKE and work my way along the line.
You're the artist, huh? Yeah.
Yeah, I wish. Piss artist, maybe.
What I said before, I think I'll stick to that because otherwise I'm going to go into too many directions. Yeah, look for somebody who's not afraid to lose his or her job. Yeah.
Jennifer.
Like for a manager, I think it's important to know your strength and also the weakness you have, and don't be afraid to ask for help.
Yeah, I'd say you can never stop learning in the music industry. There's always something that you can try and be an expert in or try and learn about. And I think it's your duty to your artist to know as much as you can as possible.
Okay. Sarah.
It's hard to add anything to that, but yeah, I would say networking and just being really honestly passionate about your artist, because it's going to be a lot of hours and investments and
Have
believing.
fun.
So yeah, if you like the music, if you like the artist, if you have a great vibe and a great time together, then that's the best way to go. Don't let money lead you or anything. No.
Just on the networking thing before we come to Elvis, how many events are you guys going to that are similar to this on a yearly basis now? Is it
I would say like 2 a month sometimes.
2 a month?
Yeah.
And how
then,
is it vital for you to do it, do you think?
yeah, well, I mean, I would say like traveling twice a month. Sometimes it's a conference, sometimes it's just going up and down to London for meetings or the US or whatever. Yeah, it's everything. I think that's your role as an artist manager. Like your artist always needs to be focused on the art and be in the studio and writing and sort of making sure that they develop on the creative side, and you need to continually grow on the business side. So, and for me, that is like 80% networking and meeting cool people.
And for young artist managers who might be out here, well, you don't have to be young. For artist managers who are out here, are there any specific events that any of you would say this is a must to go to a year, apart from Sonic Visions, of course?
Of course. Well, it really depends on your music genre as well. So it's hard to, and your market and which country you want to, so
for,
can't really.
for EDM, it would be ADE then?
Yeah, definitely.
What about for indie music?
I also always go to Eurosonic, which is
Yeah.
another Dutch one, but I think it's a really solid one. And Reeperbahn in Germany, in Hamburg is a good one. And then A2YM in New York, I've been to this year, which was really good.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Ineke?
guess the Great Escape, Southwest, Southwest, if you want to talk indie. But yeah, I think Eurosonic is for English people as well, But there's not, there are the ones we know, I guess, yeah.
I think they're great for networking. Sorry, Elvis,
Yeah.
I interrupted the flow. Some advice to aspiring managers.
Yes, believe in yourself and don't be afraid of making mistakes.
Cool. If there are no questions, I'm going to wrap up. Olaf, are you coming up on the stage here, or is it next door? Okay, so don't leave. Olaf and Olivier are going to do a little bit of a wrap-up, and then they're going to buy you all a drink. And they're taking notes of your faces. So it's only the people here that get a drink, yeah? But could you thank my panelists for coming along today and giving their time?
Thank you.
Thank you.